Hi everyone, welcome. Good morning. We will begin the session shortly once all the attendees settled in, yeah? Okay, I think most of the attendees have already started to settle in. So we can begin the session now, all right? Okay, so hello everyone. A very good morning to all of you. I am Audrey, the Associate Director with Global Migration Solutions. So thank you for making time today. I know it's a long holiday weekend here in Malaysia. So we really appreciate you making time today to attend our webinar, all right? So with the pandemic slowly evolving to an endemic right now, it's actually really nice to see that things are slowly returning to normalcy, especially with borders being open and travel restrictions and quarantine requirements being lifted up. In terms of migration as well, we are already seeing a positive shift in this currently, not just from immigration's perspective, but also from clients who believe that the time now is right to embark on their migration planning and process. And industry analysts, in fact, expects that Australia will require a significant number of skilled migrants, and both the current government and the opposition generally are on the same page in encouraging more business and skill migration for the future of Australia. So that's good news. So today we are going to focus on the three most in-demand skill migration program, which is the business migration pathway, investment migration, and the global talent visa. So why are these three programs considered the most in demand? This is because immigration places a higher priority on these visas that have the potential to attract the migrants who would be able to stimulate the economy through their investment and business activities in Australia. So business migrants are required to at least invest from an average of 200,000 into a business in Australia, and investors have the option of investing 2.5 million or 5 million. And good news, investors can also expect a very decent return on investment, usually on a quarterly basis. All right. The global talent visa, on the other hand, is aimed to attract outstanding performers in specific future-focused sectors who will be able to introduce innovative skills to high-priority industries and create opportunities for Australians by transferring skills, promoting innovation, or creating jobs. So please stay through the whole session to learn more from the experts on these programs, after which you will be able to know better and decide which is of better interest and suitability for you. All right, so before we begin the session, please allow me to share with you on the background of the company. So global migration. So is the slide stuck, Desmond? Okay, here we are. So global migration, we are based in KL, okay, Kuala Lumpur, and that's our office. and ANZ Migrate, our sister company, is based in Singapore. Okay, so we both are an award-winning migration agency that advocates the right migration practice with trust, service, and commitment for our clients, our partners, ourselves, and our brand itself. We have been in operation for 19 years now and maintain a 99% success rate. And we're happy to share that we have helped more than 12,000 families successfully with their migration plans. We are also the only migration agency in Malaysia that has won the top 25 Global Migration Agency CEO Award by You Global Magazine, an international immigration magazine based in the US. We are honored to have won this consecutively and progressed from the top 100 to the top 25 for 2021. So these are the programs that we offer. We are the pioneers for Australian and New Zealand migration. And we also offer Europe migration program through the Portugal Golden Visa and the United States EB5 program. We have presence across Australia. We have a service office in Australia, Singapore, of course, and Vietnam and Hong Kong. Now let me introduce you the speakers for today. So Desmond Ang is the founder and managing director of Global Migration Solutions. Most importantly, he is a licensed migration agent for Australia and New Zealand. Desmond is a chartered accountant by profession, and he now has more than 17 years of experience offering effective immigration advice for clients of Global Migration Solutions, and also a popular speaker in migration events. James Allen Hall is the founder and managing director of ANZ Migrate in Singapore. James's background is in IT, and he was a project manager at IBM Singapore in his early days, and now a senior migration agent and also a professional development trainer conducting CPD classes for other migration agents. These are the evidences of their current registration with Migration Agent Authority Australia. So it is important to always remember that you're dealing with current registered migration agents, and this is where you can able to verify that. So you will hear from these two experts today. So I pass on the presentation to you, Desmond. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. Hi, everyone. Good morning, and I'm Desmond, and pleased to have every one of us with us this morning. And I'm very excited to share with everyone out there the common pathway. And let's have a look very quickly on, what are these options available to get your PR or permanent residency status in Australia. Well, in general, there are several options that someone may go through in order to get the PR status in Australia. Number one, I guess most of the common one that you heard about is the general skill migration. So this is available for those professional or trades workers, and the condition is you must be below 45 years old. And some of the graduates who study in Australia may also go through the same pathway as general skill migration options after they completed their study in Australia. Followed by Global Talent Independent Visa. This is basically an options or a visa that is extended from the general skill migration. The Australian government basically is looking at outstanding individual of the field, and this is what we are going to share a little bit more in detail today. Also, if you have a job offer from an Australian employer, you may be able to explore the employer-sponsored options. Yeah, and some of you may explore the family-sponsored if any of the immediate family members who is already a PR. Now, for example, parents' visa. If your children is already a PR in Australia and you meet the family threshold test, then you are able to explore the parents' visa. Yeah. And you may heard about also the partner visa or the spouse visa. So that comes also under the family sponsored category. So if you were to marry with somebody who is an Australian PR or Australian citizen, then you can be sponsored under the spouse visa. Okay, same thing goes to the child visa under this family sponsored category. So you have parents visa, you have partner visa or spouse visa or child visa. Okay, last but not the least, you heard about the business innovation and investor stream. So these programs mainly is to attract those business owners who wish to set up a company in Australia, or those high net worth individual who has the capacity to invest in Australia, in order to obtain the permanent residency status after certain periods of times. Now, when we are talking about these 5 major pathways and 5 major options, the option number 2 and the option number 3 are the key priority by the Australia immigration at this point of time. Australia basically is looking at the outstanding individual of the field for them to be able to obtain an immediate permanent residency status. Yeah, so under the Global Talent Independent Visa, the good news is there isn't an age limit. Yeah, so whether or not you are below 45 or you pass 45, you have the options to explore this category. And later on, my colleague, James Allen Hall, he's going to share with all of you in more detail about these programs. Now, I'm going to share with everyone the options number 5, the business in innovation and the investor stream now. I'm very excited to share about this because, again, Australia came out as the top migration destination under the business innovation and investor stream again. And this has been consecutively outbeat many other countries globally, and Australia came out again as number 1, and everybody remains to have the confidence and believe that Australia is still the priority and the top choice, the right choice. And I guess reason being, Australia has a lot of the advantage compared to many countries around globally. For example, it is closest from distance-wise, it is closest to the Asia Gateway. And again, Australia always has a very stable economy, fundamental, and that has gained again, the confidence from all the migrants and the investor. All right, now, without delay, let's look at the business innovation options. Now, some of you, if you are hearing this for the first time, these programs was designed to bring in the business owner into Australia. And the fundamental, the basic requirements is you must already be a business owner running the business in your home country. There are 2 stages under this category or these visa options, stage 1 and stage 2. Now, the stage 1 would require you to fulfill certain requirements for you to be able to meet and apply for this visa. And while you are having the stage 1, after you have completed the stage 1, the whole family members are given the rights to work, to study, and to run the business in Australia up to a period of 5 years. Now, while you're in Australia, then you are subjected to certain visa condition. You must fulfill the visa condition for you to put in the permanent residency application, which is a visa that calls subclass AAA. So you are expected to go through 2 different stages at 2 different points of time, but you got to start with the subclass 1AA. I'm going to walk you through and explain how you would meet the requirements for the subclass 1AA. Now, under the subclass 1AA, these are the basic requirements, and these are the key requirements for you to be assessed as eligible and meet the requirements. You must take notes. You must be able to meet every single requirement here. Say, if you meet all the requirements but accept one specific criteria, and we would advise you not to proceed with the application because the requirement is clearly stated. The programs has always been highly regulated So when you apply for this visa, you have to be assessed as meeting the requirements, and we know it very well. So you don't need to be worried about whether or not you're putting in the application and what is the chances of you getting the approval. So this is not how the Australian migration programs works over the years. Yeah. First of all, you must be a business owner, as I mentioned earlier, and you must have at least 2 years of business experience. Okay. Now, how would the immigration assess whether or not you meet the business? You have minimum 2 years of the business experience. They do look into the shareholding structure. First of all, if it is a private limited company, you would need to have at least 30% of the share in the combination of you and your spouse. If you are running a public listed company, then you are expected, you and your spouse or combined, both of you are expected to have at least 10% of the share in the public listed company. Okay. If you are running a partnership or you are having a business that is registered solely under your name, which is a sole proprietor, that is also considered, that is also acceptable, and you are fine with that. Okay. Other than the shareholding, do take notes. The company do need to meet certain requirements, such as turnover. So during the 2 years out of the last 4 years before the visa application, do make sure that your company or your business turnover do meet 750,000 Aussie dollar equivalent. Yeah. So again, it is at least 2 years out of the last 4 years. So do take notes. I do understand that during the pandemic, some of or most of the businesses out there was affected during the pandemic and has a drop of the turnover. But do take notes that the requirement is 2 out of the 4 years. All right. Now, when we are talking about the business capacity, the immigration is also looking into your financial capacity, which is the total asset. Now, the total asset here consists of mainly, your business asset, your personal assets, such as your property, such as the money in your bank, fixed deposit, in your savings account. Do take notes, the motor vehicles doesn't consider over here. The pension fund or employer contribution fund cannot be considered because it is not liquidated until the age of retirement. So when we talk about these total assets of 1.25 million minimum, it does, again, your business asset, your property, your cash, your share investment, investment in the private managed fund, for example. And these assets do consider, immigration do consider your asset and your spouse asset. Okay. Subclass 1A business innovation visa do have an age limit of below 55 years old. At times when you receive an invitation to lodge the visa, yeah, but do take notes, certain states do consider an age waivers, for example, Western Australia. So if you pass 55 years old and you're still considering this visa subclass, do talk to us and we will advise you accordingly. Okay. Last but not the least, do take note, this is a point test visa programs, and each of you who is applying for this visa do need to meet the 65 point. And points are given based upon your age. Points are given based upon how many years of business experience do you have. Points are given based upon, how much of the turnover your company has generated, though the minimum is 750,000, but the higher the turnover, the higher points you'll be given. Yeah. Same thing goes to the assets, though the minimum is 1.25 million, but the higher value of the asset or the net worth you owned, and the higher points you'll be getting. Same things goes to the qualification. The immigration will look at whether or not you have a bachelor degree. If you have a bachelor degree, you'll be given points as well. So, and there are a few other factors that would be able to score you extra point. And we won't be going through this point system today, but if you are keen to find out how much points would you entitled to score, and do talk to us, we will assist you and we will guide you through to determine your point. Now, so that says this is the first stage. And this is the basic requirements for you to actually gain an access to Australia. And do take notes, during this process, you are not required to set up the company in Australia yet, and you are not required to invest in Australia until the subclass visa 188 is being granted to you and your family member. So that says again, when upon the grant of the visa, you and your family members have the rights to study in Australia, to live in Australia, to work in Australia, and to access to certain benefits such as primary school, secondary school educations are all free, during these periods of times. Now, next, what I would like to share with you and over here is once you have landed in Australia, so what is your commitment or what is your condition that would require you to fulfill before you can obtain your permanent residency status? Okay, do take notes. The subclass 188 given you, is giving you the 5 years periods, and during these 5 years periods, you are required to run a business for a minimum of 2 years in Australia. The Australian government in general, is quite flexible with any types of the business, that you may set up in Australia. Yeah, except Victoria, probably, which is slightly more stringent when it comes to, the types of the business. So if you do look at migrating or living residing in Victoria State, Melbourne, do talk to us so that we could highlight, things that you should take into consideration. All right. So first, running the business for 2 years, again, the business in Australia would require you to own at least 30% if it is a private limited company, or 10% if it is a listed company. So when you're setting up the business in Australia, do take notes. You could take over an existing business. You could actually joint venture. You could actually join somebody who is already running a business, or alternatively, you may set up a new fresh business, on your own. Now, let's look at the third requirements. That you are required to stay at least 1 year during these periods when the business is in operation. Okay. Now, do take notes. The requirements is 1 out of the 3 years, because after the 3rd year, you could put in the application for the PR or for the 888 application that says if you start the business during the 1st year, you need to kind of continue your business until the 3rd year. And during these periods of times, you must be able to spend at least minimum 1 year in Australia. While you're away from Australia, do take notes. You need to be able to demonstrate how you are managing the business, how do you supervise the business, and how do you make the business decision while you're away. And there's something called role swap here. If you are the principal applicants for the visa 188 and your spouse is allowed to fulfill these stay requirements on your behalf. So that Australian government does provide the flexibility, for the spouse to fulfill that residency, on your behalf. Now, let's look at the next requirements. The business in Australia is required to generate or to earn at least 300,000 Aussie dollar of the turnover. Now, this is not profit. This is the turnover. So we are talking about running the business of minimum 2 years. So this turnover of 300,000 is applicable to the 2nd year, which is the last 12 months before you put in the PR application. Now, the visa criteria number 5 and number 6, do take notes. There are actually 3 conditions all in total. And as a business migrants, you are required to fulfill either 2 of the 3 rather than meeting all the 3 requirements. And let's look at what are these 3 requirements. Number 1, your business in Australia is expected to employ 2 staff, which is again on the 2nd year of the business operation. If your business doesn't require you to employ 2 staff, then you would need to fulfill the assets criteria. Yeah. The total assets of 600,000 is applicable, and that goes to your property, the property that you bought, the money that you have in the bank, as well as your business assets. Okay, and last, the 200,000 goes to the business asset. So your business must be able to maintain an assets of 200,000 worth. Yeah. So you have the 2 staff, you have 600,000 of the first total assets and 200,000 of the business asset, where you need to fulfill at least 2 conditions. Yeah. When you fulfill all this condition, in 3 years' time, after your 1AA is granted, or after holding the 1AA visa for 3 years, you can put in the PR application. So that completes the whole journey of your business migration process. And when the business is granted, then you decide, if you are going to continue with the business, or some of you, may decide that you take a step back, where you may wanted to make, a decision otherwise, to maintain it or to dispose of the business. Okay, to maintain the PR subsequent to the approval, and that doesn't require a business commitment to maintain the PR status. Okay, so that's my sharing about the business migration. And next, let's have a look at the investor stream. So if you decided not to run a business in Australia, or you're not a business owner, but you have, the spare money to invest in Australia, these would be the programs that you're looking, at. There are 2 types of investment visa or investment program, and we call that 1AA-B, 1AA-C. To differentiate the 2, 1AA-B would require to invest 2.5 million, 1AA-C would require to invest 5 million. Yeah. Again, there are 2 stages here. That is, the first stage, which is the temporary residence visa, and the second stage, which is the permanent residency visa. Now, I guess many of you out there, heard about the changes last July, and probably Australia is probably the only countries that increased the requirements of the programs during the pandemic. And many people ask me, Desmond, why would the government increase the requirements, and how was the changes impact, on the demand of this program? Is this program still remains competitive? The answer is yes. Yeah. So I think, first of all, the Australian government, I think, is fully prepared when it comes to the changes, and to increase the requirements from 1.5 million to 2.5 million, especially for the 1AA-B visa programs. Let me share with you why. In my opinion, I think the government is so smart to move away the investment of 1.5 million, which was in the government bond that generated almost no interest, into the current requirements, which is 2.5 million, but into the private managed fund. And that has given a lot of opportunity for the migrants to like these programs, because that investment generally is giving everybody a much higher returns. And I think government is so smart, to make these changes despite the increase of the investment amount. So that changes took place last July, and it has been now almost 9 months down the road. We have seen the application, the number of the application continue to increase. And from our experience, we have submitted relatively quite, a good number of the application, despite, the increase has gone up to 2.5 million. Likewise, 5 million, continue to be popular. And Malaysia is one of the top 5 countries that has contributed a lot under this 1AA-C 5 million investment visa category ever since the Australian government introduced these programs. Okay, let's look into, what is the basic requirements of this 1AA-B visa and 1AA-C visa. Okay, if you're exploring 1AA-B, do take notes. There is a age limit of 55 years old. Again, you must be 55 years old when you receive an invitation to lodge the visa, except Western Australia, who is looking at giving the waiver So if you are above 55 years old, exploring these programs, we would suggest you to consider Western Australia. This comes with the point system, and they share the same point system as the business innovation that I went through earlier. In order to apply for this visa, you're required to have a net worth or to show a net worth of 2.5 million. Do take notes, you're not required to liquidate your assets into cash to apply for that visa. So that says during the application, you're allowed to show, you have, for example, a property that worth certain amount of the money. You're allowed to show your business, worth this much. You're allowed to show your cash in the bank, your investments, for example, in the share, in the funds, in the equity, in total, that comes to 2.5 million. Okay. Again, you're not required to invest during the application. Do take notes. This application may take up to 2 years to get it approved. So your investment of 2.5 million generally comes in upon the approval of the visa. So you have 2 years to plan, to liquidate your assets before you need to even invest, in Australia. There's a special requirements of this 1A visa. The funds that you're investing in Australia do needs to come from the business or the investment activity. So what does it really mean is, you can't basically obtain this money or, get the funds or the money from your parents, for example, or, inheritance. So it has to be self-earned, for under these visa options. And let's have a look at the 1AAC. 1AAC is a very straightforward visa, without much of the visa condition. But do take notes, the Australian government do still pay attention to whether or not the fund that you are investing in Australia, the 5 millions, comes from a legal source. It can be inheritance. It could be given to you. And there is an age limit. There's no point system assessment. So this is a very straightforward visa. And I guess, if you're looking at the last line here, and why is it that there are certain people that is applying under 1AB, there are certain people that is applying under 1AAC, and you can see there's a big difference in terms of the residency required in Australia. So there are 40 days per year. The residency is only 40 days per year. If you are considering 1AAC, and for 1AB, you are expected to spend relatively, 2 years over a period of 5 years. Okay, so that is the stage 1. Again, it takes you 2 years to get a visa approved under 1AAB, up to 2 years. Whereas 1AAC, this visa comes through very quickly. In fact, the shortest processing time that we ever experienced, under this 1AAC it was only 3 months, to get a visa approved. But do make sure that if your fund is ready, then it could be as fast as 3 months. But if you're looking at a much longer times, to plan for the funds to be invested, and we could generally, time it so that you have a much longer time of up to approximately 1 year, to get the visa approved and, needed your investment at the end of the approval. Now, let's talk about this. Can you choose? There are many questions. There are often the times, there are questions whether or not you could choose to invest into the property, or you could actually, your property that you have invested in Australia does consider as part of the 2.5 million or 5 million. The answer is no, because under these visa options, the government has, has extended requirements, or has predetermined requirements on what you can or you can't invest. In general, generally there are 3 components in this investment. The 50% goes to something called balancing investment. So just for just for an idea, what is balancing investment? Generally, we are talking about bonds, we are talking about REITs. So those are very conservative investment options. Then 30% goes to the share fund, market cap, with the company of the market cap not more than 500 million or up to 500 million. So question is, can you go to the Australian Stock Exchange and trade share, yourself personally? The answer is no. You must invest through the fund manager that, that is going to issue all the relevant reports, and confirmation to the Australian governments to confirm your investment complies with the immigration's requirement. Okay, again, 20% goes to venture capital. Back to the question whether or not, the property can be accepted or considered, as a part of the investment. There's a possibility if you are considering 1AAC, which is a 5 million options. If you are looking at investing into the commercial property, we do have clients that choose to invest into the commercial property. There is a possibility, there's options where the fund manager can structure, your commercial property investment as part of the 5 million investment options. Yeah. And these 3 years here, that actually representing the minimum time that you're required to invest. So after 3 years, and should you put in the PR application, when the PR application comes through, and you may decide on how you wanted to do, with this investment. Okay. So let's talk about, just to recap the stay requirements for 1AA-B. Basically, it is 730 days cumulatively over a period of 5 years. So again, your spouse can help to fulfill the residency requirements. So for 1AA-C, the requirements is on average of 40 days per year. If you're looking at putting in a PR application after 3 years, so that works out to be 120 days, of minimum of 120 days stay in Australia. That goes to the principal applicants. So you got to decide who is going to be living in Australia, and that the 120 days stay applies to the person. The spouse in this case, if the spouse wanted to fulfill the requirements, the spouse would need to meet a much longer day stay in Australia, which is 6 months in a year, on average. So this investment visa is a very straightforward visa. It goes to those who has no intention to run a business there, who has a fund, that is ready to be invested upon the visa approval. How does it help you and your family members? Most of our clients are doing this for the children. For example, they want to be certain that when the child finishes the study, this visa is already on hand available for them to have the full work rights, to help them to get a job immediately in Australia without having to go through the hassle to apply for other visas such as graduate visa, such as skill migration visa, which, potentially could be a lot more challenging based upon the current policy and the immigration's direction at this point of time. So many of the clients are doing this, to get the children's an application, and for the spouse to have the visa to stay on with the children's in Australia. But of course, some of you out there are looking at, all the assets planning, the flexibility to be able to invest in Australia, given the TR or the PR status, as versus, a foreign investor. So I hope that you find these sharings from me this morning informative, and that gives you some idea about the business innovation visa and the investor visa. And we have more to share with you for those who is looking at the GDI, the Global Talent Independent. If you think that you have an outstanding achievement in your field, I'm going to pass the floor to James, and James is going to share more with you on the next programs. Thank you. James, over to you, please. And I'm going to pass the remote control to you as well.
Okay, thank you, Desmond. Good morning, everyone. So with me, I'm just answering a question on the venture capital funds.
So can you see the screen, James?
Yes, I can. Thank you. I'll just leave this for now. Okay. And the remote control?
Yeah, are you able to control the slide here? If not, then let me pass over to you again. Are you controlling the slide? Yes, you are.
Okay, good.
So go back to the beginning of your slides, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, great. Okay, welcome everyone. Sorry, I was a little bit late at the beginning. My name's James. I'm a registered migration agent like Desmond, both licensed for Australia and New Zealand. My primary base is Singapore. I'm Australian by birth. I've lived and worked throughout Australia and in Singapore. And my background before I got into immigration was in the IT industry. I was working with IBM as a project manager. But now doing immigration for 19 years, I think. 19 years.
James.
Forget sometimes, it's so long. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the Global Talent Independent Program. Very interesting program. It was previously known as the Distinguished Talent Program. It's part of the government's desire to improve migration options. One of the challenges we have, particularly with skilled migration, is that skilled migration treats everyone as a generic occupation. It doesn't take into account any of their special features, any of their special history, talents, achievements. It just makes them a generic occupation. So for example, if we had Bill Gates applying, he would just be an IT manager. The same as an IT manager working at your local Harvey Norman's or anywhere else. So it doesn't show and allow their particular talents and standing to be considered. So the Global Talent Independent Program is a new program that really looks at these, and it really looks at, has this person demonstrated some achievements and achievements that would be notable? Now, it doesn't mean we need people that are superstars, but we're definitely going in that direction. We're looking for people that are doing things that would be considered important, notable, and ideally beneficial to other companies or to the country, that stand out in some way. And what the government did during the pandemic period was they tripled the number of places available for this. So prior to the program, we had 5,000, prior to the pandemic, we had 5,000 places available. During the pandemic, we had 15,000 places. So a huge increase. Now, unfortunately, these places came from other programs like general skilled migration. The same with the business migration. That was doubled as well during the pandemic period. And those places came mainly from general skilled migration. So the government decreased the general skilled migration and they increased these focus areas, business people, investors, highly talented people. And fortunately, although we're starting to come out of the pandemic period, these quotas have remained increased. So the business investment program is still increased. The global talent program is still increased. Not as much as it was during the pandemic, but still higher than the pre-pandemic levels. Now, within the Global Talent Program, there are 10 priority sectors. We are looking for people that have demonstrated achievements within one of these 10 sectors, and they are very broad sectors. Now, we've listed some examples of some specializations that can be considered within these, but this is not in any way limited to what you see as those specializations. I'll run briefly through these. And I think I've got coming up. Let me just give me a moment. Sorry, my mouse is not working very well. Yeah. Okay. So as I said, 10 priority sectors. There are a few other requirements. I'll just quickly cover those. The person must be known in the sector. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're famous. So for example, we've got someone successfully through this program who's working as an employee within a company. They don't have any notoriety or reputation outside of the company, but they've done good things within their company. They've been developing some software that was quite innovative, and the company is looking at using that software at other locations in their global company offices around the world. And that was sufficient to get them through this program. I've also had people that are involved in international drug trials across the Asia Pacific region and coordinating those drug trials. And that was sufficient to get people through this program. So we like international factors where they're there, but we don't necessarily have to have them, but they do help. We do want people that are doing things that are significant. It must at least be significant within the company, within the country, and that may be enough. It would also depend upon what type of knowledge they're using, what types of talent, and how significant the benefits are from that work that they're doing. They have to be perceived as someone that would be useful and of asset and value to the Australian community. And that can be economically, it could be in terms of knowledge transfer, it could be through establishing links with Australia. There's lots of facets that are considered for this. They must be deemed to be capable of establishing themselves in Australia. So that could mean finding work in Australia. It could mean starting their own business in Australia. And they must have the possibility of earning a high salary in Australia. And currently this level is set at 158,500 Australian dollars. So it's quite a high salary. Now I can tell you straight out that most of my clients from Malaysia and Singapore don't have this salary now, and we get them through the program successfully. Because there are two ways to look at this salary. One is that the person's earning it now, and we do have clients that do earn this. We have many clients who don't earn this. Or we can show that they've got the capability to earn this salary in the future in Australia. So for example, I've got someone who's doing a role here, and maybe they're being paid a much lower salary. I can show that there are jobs in Australia that they'll be qualified for, that would have that high salary. And even though they haven't accepted those jobs, just showing that those jobs are there, there's a possibility, they've got the right skills to apply for those jobs, and those jobs are at that salary level, then we can actually use that to show that they've got that capability to earn that in the future. And we've been very successful at doing that. We also need to have someone from Australia that will support the application. And this is someone that is known in the same field. It can be an organization, it can be a manager in an organization in that field in Australia, and they need to sign off a document confirming that this person does have skills and background that would be of usefulness to Australia. And that's something we can assist you with. We can also guide you through your own contacts to determine if there is anyone in those contacts that might be suitable to fill that role. We also make it a special exception for people that have completed a PhD within the last 3 years. So if you've recently completed a PhD or you're going to complete a PhD very soon, talk to us about this. And it is possible to do an application based upon the research activities done within a PhD degree. And that sidesteps all this professional career requirements that we'd normally expect to see. I'm just going to skip through a few of the slides. These are some examples of the typical evidence we would look for. We don't need everything you can see here, but these are some examples of what we look for. We'll often ask for evidence of awards, speaking at events, if you're mentioned in media or articles. Don't necessarily need to have all of these, but if you do, they do assist with establishing your reputation in the field. Nomination I talked about before. Now I'll go through the 10 sectors. And I'll just talk very briefly and give you an idea of what they're about. Do remember that not all of the items listed here, the scope is more than what you just see listed here. So there might be other things related to this that aren't here. For example, with resources, the focus is on minerals and ores because these are major extracts from Australia, but other resources could include water supply, timber, lumber. There could be other kinds of resources that are considered. Okay, and these are some of the technology areas that are also considered within resources that would be highly desirable, not limited to these, but highly desirable within the resources sector. Agri-food and agri-tech are also high demand. This was previously just agri-tech. Now with agri-food and agri-tech, basically we're looking at developments, knowledge, in particular technology, that will assist with the production of food. And this is designed to cover all aspects of food, right through the production of the food, farming, management, processing, manufacturing aspects, storage, logistics, everything all the way through until the food gets onto the person's table. So any work within any of these stages of food handling, production, supply, storage, processing could be considered within this. And so these are some examples of some of the focus areas within that. You will see a lot of these examples are technology oriented. Most of the program is, but there can still be older methodologies that might be of use. For example, I've got a client at the moment doing this that is working on data collection and data analysis within farming. Now, that is technology related, but it's not in the sense of going out there with robotics and drones and things like that. It is going back to statistical analysis. Energy is a very big one. Australia is a very large energy supplier and very significant amount of opportunities within energy. So we are looking for any opportunities to improve that, manage that. That can include renewable energies as well. All kinds of things could be used for this. Hydrogen is a big one that's coming up as well. And in fact, the Australian government's been talking about perhaps or looking at doing a hydrogen plant in Northern Australia with a pipeline through to Singapore as a clean form of energy. Health. And health. Now, there is a slight mistake here, and it's very important to note, this is not just health, it's health industries. So for example, if you're a very good doctor and you want to do this, even if you're an outstanding doctor that had awards, you will not be able to do this program because we're looking at health industries, not health services. There's a subtle difference there. So we're looking at the commercial industrial side of health. So this would include things like drug manufacturing, pharmaceuticals. It could extend potentially to health insurance, biomedical devices, disease management, but not providing health services as a health service provider, unfortunately. So any of these other areas could be considered within the health industries sector. We also have defense, advanced manufacturing and space. Now these are three separate areas, but the government has grouped these together because they consider there to be similar technology required for these. If you think about it, defense, advanced manufacturing, space, they all require very high precision, high technology, advanced materials, similar sorts of technology, engineering skill to carry out these. So they have grouped these together for that similarity. So for the defense side, there's lots of things looking at, but they would also include, obviously, cybersecurity, VR, augmented reality, robotics. They're a significant part of that. For advanced manufacturing, they're particularly interested in different materials, automation, robotics, precision manufacturing. These are some focus areas there. Again, we're not limited to anything you see here. And for space, they're looking at, obviously, rocket technology, commercialization of that, robotics, automation, satellites, satellite communications. We have had some clients already go through this program doing satellite communications, and they've come from Malaysia. Okay. Circular economy is another sector that is growing. So that is recycling, making things circular. So production and waste, and then managing that waste and maybe recycling that waste. In fact, energy, waste to energy is also a significant part of that. Recyclable materials and products are also part of this. So you can see a lot there. Digitech. So previously we had various ICT areas. So IT is now known as ICT, Information Communications Technology, and we had a range of options under this. We had different sectors for them. So they've amalgamated them into one sector now, which is just Digitech. So Digitech covers everything within the ICT, IT, electronics, computing, software space. So robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, computer games, 3D printing, drones, network security, all of these are within this. And again, it's not limited to what you see here. I should also point out that it's possible to get through where you may not be a technical expert in one of these. For example, I've had an IT manager get through this program, get his PR, and he's living in Australia, and he was doing software sales. He was a salesperson. I mean, he was doing product sales where the product was a leading edge product. It was something that was significant and would help his customers in terms of moving to cloud computing. But ultimately, he's a salesperson that went out there promoting and selling his company's product. And we're able to use that as a pathway to get through this. Infrastructure and tourism have recently been added. Now, this is interesting because infrastructure gives us a lot of flexibility. Now, tourism is one of the major exports industries of Australia. The infrastructure side, the thinking here is that to have a booming tourism industry, you need good infrastructure. You need telecommunications, you need transport infrastructure, you need good infrastructure generally. And Australia often, because we're a large country with a lot of regional areas, there's a lot of work that can be done in developing regional infrastructure. So there's a strong focus on that now. So infrastructure is very flexible. Infrastructure can include, well, I can tell you some examples that have got through. Architects have got through under this, urban regional planners, civil engineers have got through under this. So, and it's not just those construction people, it can be other areas that would help boost regional infrastructure. It could be telecommunications work. It could be anything like this that could be supporting infrastructure development in regional areas. And we have tourism. So anything that could help Australia's tourism industry that would be relevant to that, high skills in this area could be considered for that. We have fin services, financial services, and fintech. So you've got your cryptocurrency, digital currency, and so on. But we're also interested in other things that might be software systems that support compliance checking and regulatory controls. So there's a lot that can be considered as part of that. Education is now added, and this is interesting because this is the one of the few that isn't necessarily strong focus on tech, even though it could be. I mean, there's edutech spaces here. But we're also looking at other things like the delivery platforms for humanities, arts, and social sciences. That's a focus area now. So it's not just the technology subjects. It's not just the engineers and the IT and the scientists that are necessarily being looked at for this. Okay, in terms of the process, if you're considering this pathway, first thing, of course, is talk to us to see whether or not there's viability, and it looks like we can proceed with this. We need an idea of your background, what your major achievements are, what your awards and qualifications are, what recognition you've had, and what do you think your major achievements are and what benefits have come from those achievements. We would then put you forward for nomination. We have to find someone from Australia that is willing to say, yes, we think this person will be of value to Australia. The nominator must be someone that's in the same field. They don't need to know you. It might be someone you have through your own networks, or maybe someone that someone in your own networks can introduce you to, or maybe someone we assist you in finding. So we do have to identify that nominator, and they need to sign a statement saying, yes, they agree that you're someone that could bring significant skills to Australia. We then do an expression of interest. The expression of interest is basically a pre-approval process. And the processing time for that does vary. Now, first of all, if you are from Hong Kong or Ukraine, you'll get priority processing for this. And we'd get an answer within 1 to 2 months, typically. Aside from that, they will decide whether or not they want to priority process your expression of interest. And typically that's done is if you are doing something related to the COVID-19 response, or you've got skills that are readily adaptable to Australia, and the government thinks these are quite important skills to help with the economic recovery from the COVID-19 impact. If that's the case, again, we'll see processing within around 1 to 2 months. If not, the processing time is likely to be around 12 months, maybe even slightly longer. Now, it doesn't diminish your chances, but there are just so many people applying for this now that they've had to group people into different groups of the processing priority of the expression of interest. And some people will be in the faster queue, some will be in the lower queue, and you'll need to wait. So usually it'll be within the first 1 to 2 months. If not, we're looking at 12 months or more. We can't decide the processing priority. We can request for it, And if there is a strong case to be made why someone should get processing priority, they will consider it. And we do talk to one of the local processing officers for this, but we can't make any guarantees around that because ultimately it is their decision. Once we've got a positive outcome from the expression of interest, we can go ahead and launch the visa application. The visa application itself takes about 2 to 3 months to process. It is very fast, and it's fast for everyone. There's no separate priorities here. And that is a direct permanent residence visa. It has no ongoing obligations. It has no work requirements. You have the work rights. You can work in any job in Australia, but you don't have to. You don't have to work in any job. You don't have to use your skills. You don't have to run any business. You have a full, unrestricted, unlimited permanent residence visa for Australia. You can see some statistics and the preference for the various areas within the program here. And there are a couple of other pathways that I'm just going to very briefly touch upon. If global talent might not be the one for you, but you've got that kind of mindset. Jasmine talked about the business innovation pathways, business investment innovation, which covered the business owners and the investment pathways. There is also an entrepreneur pathway. Now, we don't talk about this a lot because although it's part of the business innovation program, it is one that requires the right mindset. You must have an innovative idea to do a business activity or product or service in Australia. And there are some challenges around this, but we also have some ways that can make it relatively easy. But we can't do this until you first have an innovative idea. Now, the idea doesn't have to be yours. You could have a friend that has a new invention or a technology or a business that's not present in Australia. You can negotiate with them to bring that product or service or business to Australia. That could be done. But you must be the one that's bringing it to Australia and making it innovative and bringing something that's innovative to Australia. So this is a possibility. You must have basic English for this, competent English. There's no waiver for that. Normally under 55, but there is a waiver for that if you are older. And depending upon the state, you may need to involve an industry incubator or accelerator, but we have an option to do it without that. And you may need to show some external funding, but again, we have options to get around that as well. The key thing is you must have a good idea to start with. So you want to talk about this with us? Go ahead, but we need to know what your innovative idea is that you'd like to carry out in Australia. So that means no restaurants, no cafes, no retail shops. You need something that's going to be innovative. There are study to residency pathways, which is if you're not eligible under one of these and you're looking at residence, it can be possible to go down to Australia, even as an older student, to study there. Typically, we're talking 2 years of study and then have residence pathways after that. A lot of planning is required with this. There are a lot of factors to consider: the course of study, your previous history, where you are studying in Australia. So this needs to be planned out very carefully. We can place you in enrollment in Australia. We can assist you with this, but there is a lot of planning around this. So it's not just, I'll go and study and I will get a degree. I'll give you an example. If you were to go and study a Bachelor of Marketing in Melbourne, do a 3 or 4 year Bachelor of Marketing in Melbourne, that as career for marketing is a dead end. You would not get permanent residence under marketing if you stayed in Melbourne. And that's a mistake a lot of people make. They choose the wrong course in the wrong location. So talk to us. And our details are there. Okay, Desmond, Audrey. Yes. Sorry, yes, I'm going on a bit there. I hope you don't mind. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a good sharing from you on this GDI, James. Thank you. And Audrey, yes, over to you.
All right. So yeah, it was fantastic from both of you. So thank you very much, James and Desmond, for a very, very precise one. Okay. So everyone, we intend to keep the session short today without taking so much of your time. And we thought that it would be better if we do not do a live Q&A this round, but we will definitely get back to you in private. There are some questions that has been posted already and we have already replied to that. So for the questions that are still pending that we're not able to reply on the session, we will definitely revert to you because we have your contact details. And for more questions or any inquiries, please do get in touch with us. The details are on the screen. As you can see, our email contact is there. Our phone contact, our WhatsApp contact is also on the screen. Please do not hesitate to contact us for any needs for your migration. And I guess we've come to the end of the presentation today. So any words from Desmond and James before we end the session?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, I guess I just wanted to take this opportunity to wish everyone, especially our Malay friends, Selamat Hari Raya, with the coming celebration. And those on the road, please stay safe. But of course, we hope that every one of you enjoy, what you're hearing from us this morning. We certainly look forward to meet you in person. If you have any question, we are available, to assist you and to guide you to identify the best suitable pathway. Beside Australia, of course, there are other programs like what we have shared from the beginning. Do reach out to us and have a nice weekend. Thank you.
James?
Yeah, I'm in holiday mode already. I'm taking my family back to Australia for the first time in 3 years.
That's nice.
I'm about to go back to Australia. I've missed Australia a lot. So that's what I'm thinking about at the moment. But immigration, I love doing immigration. I've been doing it 19 years. I do it because I love it. A couple of things. The number one golden rule in immigration is, and people ask you the question, when should I do it? The number one answer is yesterday. And what I mean by that is every time that you delay, things get harder. Desmond mentioned about the investment amounts. We had 1.5 million to invest for the 188B. And then the next day, it's 2.5 million. The threshold entry for business turnover was 500K. Next day, it was 750K. We had retirement visas not long ago, where you can invest some money and get a retirement visa. They're gone. They're only available for people that are on that want to renew now. If you were migrating as a relative, a remaining relative, which is your immediate family are all in Australia, you could get that relatively soon. Now it's a 50 year wait. Now, some of these things, it sounds scary. We don't have that with the business investment side, fortunately. But the point I want to make is Australia is a high demand country. The demand increases all the time. A natural result of that demand increasing means the queues are getting longer. More people are applying. And when that happens, requirements go up, things become harder, things become longer. So if you're interested, talk to us. There's no commitment, there's no obligation. Talk to us, at least find out, should I be doing it now? Do you think it's going to be safe if I leave it for a year or two? Understand what your position is, so then you can make an informed, planned decision. Because if you are determined to go to Australia, then almost certainly you're better off doing that as early as possible. I'm not saying that to scare people. It's just the reality of
Yes.
the program and doing it for 19 years.
Yes, that's a golden advice, Jim. So thanks for reminding everyone again on how volatile this entire migration scene is. Okay, anything else, Desmond and James?
No, I'm all good.
Yeah, all right. So thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for your time. Once again, Selamat Hari Raya and happy holidays. Please get in touch with us and see you next time. All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.